The screen fades in from black. A single, haunting note from a violin lingers in the air, accompanied by the distant sound of wind rustling through cornfields. The camera pans across a dusty golden field under a heavy gray sky, and then it zooms in tight on a pair of weathered combat boots trudging through the dirt. A woman's voice, raw and trembling, breaks the silence. "They thought they could break me," she says. "They laughed, pointed, called me that farm girl with the dead husband. But they didn't know what I carried, what I'd been through." The camera pulls back to reveal a young woman, mid-20s, her face half hidden under a worn baseball cap, her eyes burning with something fierce and unbroken. "This is my story," she says, her voice steadying. "And if you're here for a tale of grit, betrayal, and a fight that'll make your heart pound, hit that subscribe button and join our community of story lovers. Because trust me, you're not going to want to miss a single second of this." Her name is Ellie Harper, and she's the kind of woman you'd pass in a small town diner and never think twice about. Faded jeans, a flannel shirt tied around her waist, and a quiet strength in her step that doesn't beg for attention. But beneath that unassuming exterior is a story that could make a grown man cry and a coward run. Ellie's life wasn't always this way, wasn't always a battlefield of whispers and cruel laughter. Once she was just a girl from Willow Creek, Nebraska, a speck of a town where everyone knew your name and your business, a place where the corn grew taller than dreams and secrets stuck to you like burrs on a sweater. Ellie grew up on her family's farm, 200 acres of rolling fields where the days started before dawn and ended when the stars came out. Her father, Tom Harper, was a man of few words, his hands calls from years of working the land. Her mother, Leela, was the heart of the farm, always humming old country tunes while she canned peaches or mended fences. Ellie was their only child, a tomboy with a stubborn streak, and a laugh that could light up the glueast Nebraska dusk. She'd raced through the fields with her border collie Rusty, dreaming of a life bigger than Willow Creek, but never quite sure what that meant. By the time she was 18, Ellie had a plan. She'd go to community college, study agriculture, and take over the farm one day. But life, as it often does, had other ideas. Enter Jake Monroe, a soldier on leave from the army, who rolled into town one summer with a crooked smile and a motorcycle that roared like it was alive. Jake was everything Willow Creek wasn't: wild, unpredictable, and dangerous in the way that makes your heart skip. He met Ellie at the county fair where she was showing her prize heifer. "Daisy, you look like trouble," he'd said, leaning against the fence, his dog tags glinting in the sun. Ellie smirked. "You look like you're lost." 2 weeks later, they were inseparable. Jake told her stories of far-off places, deserts in Afghanistan, mountains in Germany, places Ellie had only seen in books. He was 22, battle-hardened but soft. When he looked at her, they fell hard and fast. The kind of love that feels like it's written in the stars. When Jake proposed, under an oak tree by the creek with a ring he'd saved 6 months to pay for, Ellie said yes without a second thought. They married in a small ceremony at the farm with fireflies dancing in the air, and her parents wiping tears from their eyes. "You take care of her," Tom had said to Jake, gripping his hand. Jake nodded. "Always, but forever is a promise the world doesn't always keep." Jake was deployed again, this time to a conflict zone Ellie couldn't pronounce. She wrote him letters every day, pages filled with stories about the farm, Rusty's latest antics, and dreams of the life they'd build when he came home. Jake's letters back were shorter but full of love, always ending with, "Wait for me, Elle. I'm coming back." Until one day, the letters stopped. Ellie didn't worry at first. Mail was slow, deployments unpredictable. But then came the knock at the door. It was a Tuesday, the kind of ordinary day where the chickens clucked and the tractor hummed. 2 men in dress uniform stood on the porch, their faces grim. Ellie's knees buckled before they even spoke. "Mrs. Monroe," one began, "we regret to inform you." The words blurred into a haze. Jake was gone, killed by an ID in a place she'd never see. He was 24, Ellie was 22, a Widow before she'd even learned how to be a wife. The grief was a living thing, glowing at her chest. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped being Ellie. The farm became a prison. Every corner holding memories of Jakey. His laugh, his touch, the way he'd sing off key to the radio. Her parents tried to help, but grief like that doesn't listen to reason. The town tried to in their own way. Casseroles piled up on the porch, and neighbors left voicemails. Ellie never returned, but Willow Creek was small, and small towns talk. Soon the whispers started. Poor thing, so young to be a widow. She'll never move on. What's a farm girl going to do now? Ellie heard them all, every word a needle in her skin. But the worst came from a group of girls she'd known since high school. Callie Reed and her clique. The kind of women who wore cruelty like a badge. Callie had always been the queen bee, with her perfect blonde curls and a smile that could cut glass. She'd never liked Ellie, not since Ellie beat her in a 4 competition in 8th grade. Now, Callie saw Ellie's pain as an opportunity. Look at her, Callie would say loud enough for Ellie to hear at the gas station or the diner. Still wearing his ring like he's coming back. Pathetic. Her friends would laugh, their voices carrying across the parking lot. Farm girl's got no one now. Bet she'll be alone forever. What would you have done in that moment? Stood up to them, walked away. Ellie chose the latter, her head down, her heart breaking a little more each time. But something was brewing inside her, something stronger than the grief. She didn't know it yet, but it was the spark of a fire that would change everything. Ellie found solace in small things. She started running again, pounding the dirt roads around the farm until her lungs burned. She took up Jake's old hobby, tinkering with the motorcycle he'd left behind in the barn. And one day on a whim, she drove 2 hours to a tattoo parlor in Lincoln. I want something for him, she told the artist, her voice steady for the first time in months. She chose a design that spoke to her soul, a pair of dog tags inked on her forearm with Jake's name and the words, "Forever my soldier." In elegant script, the needle stung, but it was a pain she could control, a pain that meant something. When she looked at the tattoo, she felt Jake with her, his strength in her veins. But the tattoo became a lightning rod for Callie's venom. One evening at the local bar, the Rusty Spur, Callie spotted it. Ellie was there with her cousin Matt, trying to feel normal for one night. Callie sauntered over, her friends trailing like vultures. Nice ink, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. What, you think that tattoo is going to bring him back? Or you just like advertising your sob story? The bar went quiet, all eyes on Ellie. Matt clenched his fists, but Ellie put a hand on his arm. She stood, her eyes locked on Callie's. You don't know what it means, she said, her voice low, but steady. And you never will. The room held its breath, waiting for Callie to strike back, but she just smirked and walked away. It wasn't over, though. Not by a long shot. The bullying escalated. Callie and her crew started a whisper campaign, spreading lies that Ellie was on Hinge, that she was obsessed with her dead husband. They'd leave notes on her truck, cruel, childish things like widow weirdo, scrolled in marker. Ellie's friends urged her to fight back, but she didn't know how. Not yet. She was still finding her footing, still learning who she was without Jake. But the farm was struggling, too. A drought had hit Willow Creek hard, and the bank was circling like a hawk. Ellie's parents were aging, and the weight of keeping the farm alive fell on her shoulders. She worked soon up to sundown, her hands blistered, her heart heavy, and still the whispers followed her. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late summer, the air thick with the scent of hay and desperation. Ellie was at the county fair again, helping her dad with their booth. Callie and her friends were there too, strutting through the crowd like they owned the place. They stopped at the Harper booth, where Ellie was selling homemade jams. Oh, look, Callie said, picking up a jar and pretending to study it. Farm girls playing house. Bet Jake would have hated this stuff. She dropped the jar, letting it shatter on the ground. The crowd gasped, but Callie just laughed. Oops, she said, her eyes glinting with Malice. Ellie's hands shook, but she didn't move. Not yet. She felt the tattoo on her arm, warm under her sleeve, like Jake was whispering to her. Don't let her win, he seemed to say. But before Ellie could respond, a stranger stepped forward, a man in his 30s, lean and weathered with eyes that had seen too much. He wore a faded army jacket, and his voice was calm but firm. You dropped something, he said to Callie, his gaze unwavering. Pick it up. Callie froze, her confidence cracking. The man didn't flinch. Now, he said, who was this guy? Why was he stepping in? The crowd was riveted, and so was Ellie. Kai, for once, was speechless. She bent down, picked up the broken glass, and muttered something before slinking away with her friends. The stranger turned to Ellie, his expression softening. You okay? He asked. She nodded, but her mind was racing. There was something about him, something familiar, something that reminded her of Jake. I'm Ben, he said, offering a hand. I knew your husband. The words hit like a thunderclap. Ellie's breath caught, and the world seemed to tilt. Knew Jake? How? Why was he here? The fair light spun around her, the crowd's chatter fading into a dull roar. Ben's eyes held hers, steady and knowing, like he carried a secret that could unravel everything. We need to talk, he said, his voice low. But not here. What did Ben know? And what was he about to reveal that would turn Ellie's world upside down? The screen fades to black, the violin note rising again, sharp and haunting. Stick around, the narrator says, because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. Hit that like button if you're ready for more, and let's dive into Chapter 2. The screen flares back to life with a close-up of Ellie's tattoo. The dog tags glinting under a dim street lamp. The camera pulls back to show her standing outside the fairgrounds, the neon lights flickering in the distance. Ben is beside her, his army jacket worn, but proud, his face half lit by the glow. The narrator's voice cuts in, urgent and gripping. If you're just joining us, you're in for a wild ride. Ellie Harper's life was turned upside down by lost betrayal in a mysterious stranger who claims to know her late husband. If you haven't subscribed yet, join our story-loving crew now. You're not going to want to miss what happens next. Ellie's heart pounded as she faced Ben. The fair was winding down, the crowd thinning, but the air felt thick with anticipation. What do you mean you knew Jake? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ben glanced around like he was checking for eavesdroppers, then leaned in. Jake was my best friend, he said. We served together. He talked about you all the time. Ellie said you were his reason to keep going. Her throat tightened, tears threatening to spill. She hadn't heard Jake's name spoken like that, like he was still alive in so long. But there was something in Ben's tone, something heavy. There's more, he said. Things Jake wanted you to know. Things he couldn't tell you himself. What would you have done in that moment? Followed a stranger into the unknown or walked away, clinging to the safety of grief? Ellie chose to listen. Ben led her to a quiet corner of the fairgrounds near a rusted picnic table under a willow tree. The night was warm, but Ellie shivered as Ben began to speak. Jake wasn't just a soldier, he said. He was working on something big, something that got him in trouble. Ellie frowned, her mind racing. Jake had never mentioned anything like that. He was a mechanic, fixing Humvees, not some spy out of a movie. What are you talking about? She asked. Ben's eyes darkened. Jake stumbled onto something he shouldn't have. A smuggling ring, high-value tech, being funneled out of the base. He was going to blow the whistle, but he needed proof. He hid Ellie, hid it where no one would look. He paused, his gaze dropping to her arm. In you, Ellie's breath caught. She touched her tattoo, instinctively, the ink suddenly feeling alive under her skin. What do you mean, in me? She asked, her voice trembling. Ben leaned closer. Jake had a microchip, small as a grain of rice. It's got everything. Names, dates, proof. He said, if anything happened to him, you'd know what to do. The world spun. Ellie stumbled back, her mind a storm of questions. A microchip. Jake. This was her husband, the man who'd carve pumpkins with her and fix the tractor. When it broke, not some secret agent, but Ben's eyes were steady, unyielding. He didn't tell you because he wanted to protect you, he said. But they found out. He was on to them. That's why he trailed off. But Ellie knew. That's why Jake died. Not just an IED. Not just bad luck. Her knees buckled and she sank onto the bench. Who's they? She whispered. Ben's jaw tightened. People with power. People who don't like loose ends. The revelation hit like a freight train. Ellie's grief, her anger, her everything. It all shifted. Jake's death wasn't random. It was a cover-up. And now she was a target. But why was Ben here? Could she trust him? The questions piled up, each one a spark in the fire growing inside her. She looked at her tattoo again, tracing the dog tags with her finger. Was it possible? Could Jake have hidden something in her? Something worth killing for? Before she could ask more, headlights cut through the darkness. A black SUV screeched to a stop nearby and two men in dark jackets stepped out. Ben grabbed Ellie's arm. We got to go now. Her heart raced as they bolted toward the woods, the men's footsteps pounding behind them. The chase was frantic, branches snapping underfoot, Ellie's lungs burning as she ran. Ben led her to a ditch where they crouched hidden by shadows. The men passed, their voices low and urgent. Find her, one said. She's got it. Ellie's blood ran cold. They weren't after Ben, they were after her. When the coast was clear, Ben helped her up. One need to get that chip out, he said. It's in the tattoo. Jake knew you'd keep it safe. Ellie's mind reeled. Surgery. Danger. This was her life now. But there was no time to process. Ben had a friend, a former army medic named Tara, who could help. They drove through the night to a small cabin outside Lincoln, where Tara was waiting. She was tough, no nonsense, with a scar across her cheek that told stories of her own. This is going to hurt, Tara said, prepping a makeshift operating table. Ellie nodded, her jaw set for Jake. She'd do anything. The procedure was quick but agonizing. The needle digging into her arm as Tara extracted a tiny silver chip no bigger than a sesame seed. Ellie clenched her teeth, tears streaming down her face. Not from the pain, but from the weight of it all. Jake had trusted her with this. He died for this. When it was done, Tara handed her the chip sealed in a small vial. What now? Ellie asked her voice. Ben's face was grim. We take it to someone who can use it. Someone who can expose them. But the danger wasn't over. The next morning, as they planned their next move, Ellie's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Give us the chip or the farm burns.